way, yes. But like I said, uh, see, when you talk about accountability, it's you're looking at it from a different perspective. I am not using LDAP to see who's doing what. I am using an LDAP to enable users to do what they're allowed to do, right? So like I said, it's a list of access controls, a list of policies of once user get authenticated, they will be the policy will be implemented which allows or disallows them from performing certain actions, right? Accountability would come into the picture when somebody has already performed an action and then you're going to verify whether he was authorized or not authorized, right? Okay, so usually in Windows Server machine we install AD domain server. I can see LDAP over there. Where can I find LDAP is connected to an Active Directory. It is a particular role. Now, uh, there it is. So this is how you're going to use it for. So in when you look at your servers, you get your LDAP right there. So you can see that you have your ADDS, the Active Directory over there, right, where you can create it. And if you want a subdirectory which connects to the Active Directory, that's when you install the LDAP, the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. Right? And as you can see, after installation, you're going to configure it, and then you're going to connect it to the Active Directory where you have those, where you already have that Active Directory, and then you're going to configure it based on port number 389 for LDAP, and so on and so forth. Right? Now that here you can see that once they have synchronized it, they get all the interchange format files from that for that particular Active Directory, right? And now you can see that this is what the LDAP view is. So once you open up the view, you'll see all the access controls and the computers that are connected, the users that are created, and so on and so forth, right? So that's where you are coming up with the Active Directory. LDAP is like services which can install like other services in AD. See, uh, you're getting confused here. LDAP Active Directory is a rule that needs to be installed on a Windows Server operating system. Okay. Uh, so when you're creating an infrastructure and when you're creating an architecture of how you want to deploy that infra, how you want to provide access to different people, that is when you first, I mean, your main server is going to be Active Directory server where you're going to create a domain, let's say xyz.com, right? And when you're creating that domain XYZ, you'll always have subdomains within it, and subdomains for different departments, like let's say sales, marketing, HR, right? And I want to segregate those departments. I don't want them to interact, and I have multiple offices as well. So instead of everyone coming onto an Active Directory and getting authenticated, where there will be, I mean, the Active Directory might get overloaded. I will then create LDAP servers for maybe the for all the subdomains, just for that particular subdomain authentication, just for that subdomain's access controls, right? So the LDAP server becomes the buffer between the Active Directory and the end user. So whenever a user authenticates using a Kerberos protocol, he might get connected with the LDAP server. If the LDAP doesn't have the specific role, it's the LDAP server is going to connect to the Active Directory and check for any updates in policies, right? The users cannot directly interact with the Active Directory, so that's a more added what you can say a security mechanism to protect the Active Directory as well, not only from hackers but also from workloads. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so let's move on to module 2. If I remember correctly, we had finished the first module and we are going to start from the second one, right? Footprinting. Okay. So, what is footprinting and why is it necessary, right? Footprinting is the methodology where we are going to collect information about a target network. Why do we want to collect information? Think of it from multiple perspectives. A hacker wants to hack a victim. If he doesn't know what the victim is, who the victim is, or what they are utilizing, uh, we will not be able to create attacks, right? So if I want to attack someone, if I want to hack that person, I need to know the operating system they're using, the IP addresses, the infrastructure, the job definitions, right? Probably I want to create a social engineering attack. So for me to create a social engineering attack, I first need to know what they're gullible for. So that's where your footprinting comes into picture, right? So it's all about gathering as much information as possible about the victim, which will enable me in my later stages to create attacks and be able to hack that victim, right? From a security person's perspective, I want to know what information is available about the organization outside, so I know how that information can be perceived. Secondly, the expert can then decide based on the information that is made available to the public whether a hacker can misuse that information, and if yes, to what extent can they misuse that information. So it's a sanitization exercise from a security expert's perspective, right? So the idea is to see what information is available and identify that which information should be made unavailable, and then trying to delete that information from the websites or from wherever it is available. All right. There are two ways you can do footprinting: passive and active. Passive is without interacting with the target, which means you're going to go online, you're going to go to publicly available resources, and you're going to verify what kind of information you can get from those. Whereas active footprinting is where you're going to directly interact with the target, where you could pose yourself as a legitimate user, a client, a new vendor, a new investor, depending on the scenario, right? So this is where your information gathering comes into the picture. And to be honest with you, we do this on a regular basis, right? When you wanted to do your CEH, the first thing that you went online was probably went online and looked for organizations who offer those kind of courses. You probably tried to figure out what kind of training is going to happen, what tools are included, and whatnot. So that was your attempt at information gathering to understand what the course is all about, and then based on that, you would have made a decision of whether to register for the course or not. Okay, so it's basically gathering information to enable you to do certain uh, activities, right? I all wanted to know if all got access codes for Aspen. I haven't received yet. Okay, there are a lot of issues with the Aspen codes. I think I don't know what's going on, but what I'll be doing is after the session I'll be connecting to Simplilearn and I'll be checking with them as to what the problem is. Okay. So, oh, Shivani as well, is it? Okay, so that's a lot of people, really lot of people who are having issues. Uh, Let me follow up on that and I'll get back to you. All right. Let's get back to what we were discussing. We were talking about footprinting. Yes, pretty much everyone in the batch. Okay, let's do one thing. At the end of the session, please give me a list of all the people who have not received anything. I'll assume it's everyone, and then I'll get in touch with Simplilearn and get this sorted out. But let's not eat our or let's not consume our training time for that. Okay. When will we get exam vouchers separately for taking examinations? I'll answer that question. So let's park all the questions regarding access codes and exams and all that. We'll deal with that later at the end of the session, right? Let's go back to the footprinting module. Let's concentrate on the task at hand. We'll worry about and we'll speculate about other things that can be taken care of later in another session. All right. So that's footprinting, gathering information which will enable you to have, which will enable you to make decisions, right? Objectives, knowing your security posture. What information is available about me outside, and can that be misused? I've seen organizations utilize these kind of exercises for marketing strategies as well, to verify how their products have been placed in the market, how they have been received, are there any issues and things like that. So it could be used for multiple scenarios. Reducing the focus area. So if I identify that there is some information that shouldn't be made available, I can delete that information as well. Identify vulnerabilities in target systems and draw network maps, which will assist me in identifying how the network has been created, how it has been interconnected, and then you utilize that to leverage attacks. All right. Methodology. Now this is where I stop the PDF. See, reconnaissance is basically it's the activity is similar. It's footprinting or reconnaissance, right? Yeah, I got a typo. Is it? Reconnaissance, the word is more utilized in military observations. So when you go into defense mechanisms, this is the terminology that they will be using. They wouldn't call it footprinting, right? Even on news, you must have heard that somebody did a recce. That what that means is that they visited the site, they sat there, they observed things, and they collected information, and they came back. Okay, so this I would say is more of a physical in nature, right? So that's the basic difference. Footprinting is just about the same, right? Is the first and most convenient way that hackers use to gather information about computer systems. So here, if you look at the definition, it is specifically to computer systems. That this is the way a hacker would fingerprint a system, gather information about it. Whereas a reconnaissance activity could also mean that I went to the company's site, I sat there, I interacted with some people and collected information. All right. So this is where we start the practicals from. All right. We start off with a non-targeted part where we don't decide on a target yet. We start off with something that is known as Google hacking, or people call it using Google Docs, right? Now, what is Google hacking? Google is nothing but a search engine, right? So if I just go to google.com, I can search for anything like we have been doing right now. What is reconnaissance? What is footprinting? The words for that. We use this on a very regular basis. But have you ever wondered it that way, or this in a particular way, where we identify that okay, there is something wrong with some machines? Can I search for that? Because look at it this way: web servers, they've been published onto the internet, right? Services that I consume like Google or the search criteria in it, or the websites that I use for, like if I look for Simplilearn, right? It gives me those search engines. Now, if it can search the particular website and give me information about it, can I also misuse this to gather more information, like maybe a server information, or more information about the platform that this website is using, right? The reason for that is, uh, if it's already published onto the internet, it exists over there, and based on that, can I gather that kind of information? right? So what we do here is we basically use a certain set of queries. So if you go here, you see this, uh, just gonna zoom in. What are these known as? These are basically Google operators or Google dorks that you can utilize to target a particular query to a particular aspect of that particular server. So if you look at these, all in title, all in URL, info represents some information that Google has about a particular web page, right? Or cache, a web page stored in Google's cache. So earlier copy that has been stored. So what these are that I use this to target a particular section of the website. All in title. What does that mean? For every web page that we go, there is a title for it, right? So that's something that has already been declared when we create the website. So based on that, I am going to craft a query which will only look at the title of a particular page and look for a certain set of keyword within that title. So for example, something like this, I go to Google and I say all in title, and you can see that I've already been using this a lot, and I say index of slash root. So what I'm saying is go to a website, see in the titles of their pages and try to find out if there is slash root mentioned over there. Now this has a the vulnerability that we are exploiting here is that proper access controls to directories and files have not been done on that particular website, right? And that is why it allows the search engine to go and look for these kind of sites or these kind of titles. Now if I when I create a website and I create those different directories in which I store data, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, using access controls, I'm going to allow a certain activity to happen and disallow something to happen, right? That's why we have authentication mechanisms and like that. So here the administrator has not basically sanitized the directory properly. So what happens out of this is supposed to be, this is the normal website, okay? trinitygr.com. However, due to this vulnerability where uh, the administrator has not correctly given access controls, we are able to get the root of that particular server. And when I say root, it means that instead of going to a particular website, it allows me to go outside that website and look for uh, directories that have certain set of information in it, which should not be made available. They should be only there for the uh, administrator. And it also leaks information as in what kind of server is being utilized. So this is Apache 2.4.18 Ubuntu server listening on port 80. So this is a HTTP website. Similarly, these are your normal websites, right? And that's the index to what you've been looking at. And based on that, you can then go in. Now this would have been an HTML page, right, where it should be showing me the pictures and all that. But what I'm able to do through the browser is I'm able to go directly to that particular website and access the particular folders instead of the site itself, right? So why root? Because I'm going to target Linux servers. You can see most of the servers that I'm going to are Linux server. The moment I change from root to admin, the server changes to a Microsoft server, right? I can clone this site and use for phishing. Yes, we'll get there in a later stage of this training, okay? So this is where we come across Windows servers. So that's the difference between the queries. Slash root is targeting a Linux server, slash admin is targeting a Windows server. Similarly, index of password or index of admin password text or admin slash star, right? Or index of credit card. So here, I mean, this kind of information, right? So these are what WP WordPress website content uploads for 2012, and this is what Central Savings Bank, and you're able to look at some documents over there, some PDFs. These look like sample documents though. Now what we are doing here is not legal. Okay, the reason for that is even if they have a vulnerability, that doesn't mean that we exploit it. So you might want to do this very carefully, right? And it doesn't end here. What you can do is there is a website called exploit-db. DB stands for database, right? Which have advanced queries for these things as well. So there's a Google hacking database right here. Now this is something that you can use for your vulnerability research and things like that. So this will give you the updates to the latest hacks or the latest vulnerabilities that have been coming in. But going back to Google hacking database, these are the kind of queries that you can craft. So if I want to look for files containing passwords, right, I can go there and then I can look for something like normally the query that I use is this. There's a database query right there, right? And so this is a list of queries that have been created by hackers, and they're sharing this with everyone. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm gonna copy this query, right? Go here, and you can see that this basically is what a DB password. In text, it's looking for a MySQL hostname, and the extension should be txt file. So it's looking for configuration files which will have this kind of information. And if you just open up the first one, you'll see that it will dump the configuration for WordPress and give me information. So you can see what is the user's name. The user's name is the database name is invisible. The username is invisible. The database password is visible with instead of I, it's 1 and things like that. So this is where your leakage happens. And that's what I normally concentrate on when we talk about security. It's not about a one-step thinking where, okay, I've installed a firewall, I've installed an antivirus, or I've installed a UTM and I'm going to secure myself against all kind of attacks. No, the major attacks that always happen are misconfiguration attacks, and this is a perfect example for that, because no, if you look at it, there's a unique password. It's not, I mean, it's based on dictionary word, but it's been sanitized to a certain extent, right? Can you explain a bit on invisible and visible, or what info should we focus on? See, okay, visible and invisible is basically the username and password that we have been able to crack. What you're focusing on is that this database was not secured properly, and you could craft a particular query like this, search generically onto the Google search engine, and the search engine is going to give us answers to that particular query if I have not sanitized uh, my security systems for my server, right? I have not Karan also Karan, we are going to address these kind of queries at the end of the session. So please park it for now, and in the last Q&A session we will discuss this as well. Okay. Gaurav, what you need to concentrate on during these sessions is the methodology of the hack happening, not the output of that particular hack. Okay. So what we are discussing here is you're talking about Google Docs, you're talking about Google advanced hacking techniques, the way they are known, or you're looking at what is known as a Google hacking database, where you get all these queries. Can you paste in text command here? You can just go online, search for it, and you can get this queries. I can do that for you, but okay. So sticky notes, is it? Okay, I'll check that out later. So what these are, you can see it's called a Google Doc. It's basically you crafting a query which will allow the Google search engine to search in a way where it can give out vulnerabilities, right? So if you go back to the Google Hacking database, you'll see that your queries can be crafted in this manner. You can find out vulnerable servers, error messages, online devices, pages containing login portals, right, and things like that. So using these operators, you can basically look for vulnerable sites. Now, if you want to target this to a particular website that you have, right, you always use the site operator. So you can see that I'm now targeting Trello.com for a password match. And if I open this, right, reset password used on audit project, password manager app on ledger roadmap, and so on and so forth. So this basically is a query where it's going to Trello.com and looking for the word password in it. Okay, it's as simple as that, right? It takes me to the reset your Trello password. So this also gives an understanding of how I should be looking, or how should I use the search engine in the first place, because the queries that we create, we normally are very verbose with it. For example, if you look at the queries that I have been making so far, I've always been making a single word query, like we are talking about footprinting, or what is reconnaissance, or LDAP and things like that, and still getting relevant results. Normally what users do is they type in the entire question, right? So you have to restrict yourself to certain keywords, use those operators, and your search engine, your search queries are going to be refined. If you use these kind of things, you're going to find out those vulnerable websites as well, right? You can see that again for this website, when we use the this kind of a query, it gives me a list of all these sites, right? So this basically dumped. Now you can look at this, the DB name, the username, the password that he has created is very unique. And if I do a brute force attack to crack this password, it will take me a really long time. So if you look at the policies here, he has followed a very good password policy where his password is basically unhackable, but then he didn't secure his configuration files properly, and hence his password, even if unique, is leaked out straight like that. So one of the policy is good, the other policy is not that good, and he still gets hacked, even having a very good password over there, right? Everyone with me? Are you understanding what I'm trying to tell you? Perfect. Right? These are your authentication keys, and you can see that these sites are leaking out information like nobody's business. Now, these are the queries that you can do for websites. Yes, the password is complex, difficult to hack, but he still got hacked because he did not secure his server properly. Right? Can we hack the passwords for online bank accounts? See, these kind of queries don't make sense, to be very honest with you. The reason for that is, what are you targeting here? Are you targeting the bank and you want to hack the database of the bank, or are you targeting a particular user and you want to hack that user's bank account? Right? So when we talk about hacking, you first have to identify the objective. 99% of the time, it is the user that gets hacked, not the uh, uh, service provider. How do I know if conf files on Ubuntu servers are secure? Files like pam.d or shadow file. See, that's where your access controls come into the picture, right? So if I deploy a server with root privileges and I publish it directly onto the web server, anybody can get root access. So when people identify how to connect to the server, I'm going to provide them with an authentication mechanism, and none of them are going to get or going to be authorized to get administrative access. So the moment I restrict administrative access, password files like shadow or your PSSWD or pam.d, they themselves would be restricted as well, right? So in Linux, if you remember, you can give permissions to users, groups, and what's the third party? Uh, Users, groups, and the owner of that particular file. You can change that. So when you're creating those configuration files, you can say this configuration file is owned by root and only accessible by root. and don't give root access to anybody else. So automatically, if they're not within that access control list, they will not be able to access that particular file, right? So this is again another Trello entry where it is looking for a SQL database, and in text it is looking for a password. So what does this do? Public Trello boards with juicy stuff, right? So it's going to basically allow me to look at it. This is the IP address, this is the user, right? If I just open this up, I'll probably be bypassing authentication and looking at somebody else's Trello board when I shouldn't have the permission, right? There it is. So somebody doing some project over here and I'm getting access to that, which I shouldn't be doing, by the way. So I'm just going to close these. What if the website is configured so as not to be indexed by search engines, footprinting in that case? That's the security aspect, right? So if I configure a website and it should not be indexed by search engines, that means that I'm also limiting the visibility of that website. So if somebody knows that this website exists, only those people can reach the website. If they are not indexed by search engines, right? See, here the business case of use comes into the picture. If I'm going to publish a website, that means that I'm going to publish a service on it. If it's a service on the internet, I want people reaching it, and that is why I will list it in search engines. If I want to keep it private, right, I will basically deny search engines from listing my website, and which will only enable people who know about that website to come visit it, right? We'll be reaching robots.txt in a bit, right? You're getting that idea, right? So your configurations matter a lot of how you're going to deploy that website, of how you're going to utilize a particular service, or how you're going to give a particular service to users. Okay, any questions? Everyone with me so far? Okay, so this is websites, and Bharti, best practices to avoid from hack. Let's first look how to hack first, and then we'll look at best practices to avoid from hack. Because see, look at it this way: if I don't know what I'm protecting myself against from, how am I going to protect myself from it? If I don't know of a particular vulnerability, if I don't know about a particular thing, I cannot basically use a defense mechanism, right? So best practices to avoid from hack. There is nothing that will give you, a point blank, because it needs to be compared with what you want and then securing it against it, right? So coming back, we've been looking at websites and things like that, but what about devices? Because uh, can I get access to routers? Can I get access to other devices, right? So there's another website called Shodan.io, which allows me to look for devices and things like that. So this I've seen a lot of organizations purchase actual what you can say, a valid account. Now this is my account here is free, right? You can see I get an upgrade link over here, and they say, okay, you want a membership? That's just $49 a month. Unlock everything that Shodan has to offer by becoming a member, right? And what I've seen is I've seen organizations utilize this to identify and audit their web-facing servers, right? So if I've got a web server like an Exchange server or a website or any of the services that are published online, routers or switches that are gateway devices, I can use this to basically scan them to see whether they are secure or not. For example, something as simple as that. In the city of Mumbai, I want to find vulnerable Cisco devices. So I just do that. I search that using that query, and you can see that it gives me a lot of information. So this is a Tata Communication server within VSNL.net with this IP address, right, in India. It gives me the services that are running on it, the organizations that are utilizing it, and so on and so forth. So if I just open up this, right, in a new tab, what it's trying to do is it's trying to connect to that IP address automatically, right? And I shouldn't be doing this because again, this is illegal. Them having a vulnerability doesn't mean that I hacked them, but you can see that using SSH or through one of these services, it's automatically allowing you to connect to that particular device, right? Similarly, the first one that we see, if we go there, it shows me where it is located, right? This is Mumbai, and in Mumbai, this is telling me this is used by P4 Networks Private Limited, and you can see that it's telling me that there are two services open here, two ports, port 22 and 123, and 22 is using SSH secure shell, and it basically leaks out the key for authentication as well, right? So if you have used secure shell, you know that there's a private key that has been created using RSA and stored for authentication mechanism. So when I try to connect to it, I present the key. If the key matches the data that is stored, I get access to that. And this is basically the key. So if I can create a private key using this information, I can basically just connect to this device, get a shell access, and I can misconfigure this device, or I can change whatever I want. Right? This is the raw data that I'm getting. Right? This is my SSH key that I can utilize. Seeing a lot of questions. How far is it feasible to write our own bot which can scan websites even though robots.txt deny to scan the website? As in robot.txt can disallow some crawlers. See, we have not reached robots.txt yet, so once we reach there, we can discuss this question then. Okay. Concentrate on the topics that we are discussing right now because these are going to come in your exam. And you want to basically understand these things so that you can answer those questions properly, right? Suril says, sorry, I joined late. How much have I missed so far? Whatever you have missed, you can go through the recordings and you can get that back as well. So don't worry about it. Is Shodan a search engine? Yes, it is a search engine that allows me to search for devices and scan devices for vulnerabilities as well. Right? What sort of search can we perform on Shodan? Anything. You can type in IP addresses. You can type in domain names. Something like this. I mean, I can just type in simply learn as well and search for it. Let's see what kind of queries it comes up with, right? So this basically gave me an incorrect query. This is something about Dominican College of Lowell. I don't know why this came up for this particular query. That's a lot of data that has been leaked out. Right? See, like we saw Google that searches for websites and things like that. Shodan is basically created to identify web servers and devices, right? So when we did this, or in the city of Pune, so what this is allowing me to do is it's allowing me to search for Cisco devices in a particular region, right? And it will give me the list of those devices. If I do this on Google, Google is going to search for websites with the word Cisco in it, and will give me the links to the words to those websites with Cisco in it. So that's the difference between the search engines. That the other one, the Google, allows me to look for websites. This allows me to look for devices. With such websites and information, while we use these tools to footprint, how do we validate our security? Do we not raise a flag as potential targets? Yes, definitely. And that's so. See, a hacker tool, when used by an administrator, becomes a security tool, and hacker tool used by a hacker becomes a hacking tool. Right? It's as simple as that. So I can use these same devices to hack others. I can use these same things to see if I am secured or not. Right? For example, on this Google Docs, what I can do is I can use the site operator like site Trello.com, and on Trello.com it is looking for vulnerable databases which have this data in it. So if I am let's say if I'm using the same thing and I want to audit Simplilearn, I'll just use the operator like something like this, right? and then say all in title index of slash root. So this, I'm telling it that this query that we initially when we ran it just on the internet without any particular website in mind, right? Now I'm saying, okay, this query, fire it at simplilearn.com. Sorry, I forgot the .com. And you can see that here it gives me an error. So simplilearn.com is not vulnerable to this kind of queries. So I can utilize this to audit. If I just do it a random search on Google, it will just give me all the websites that it is vulnerable for, that it has been able to list, right? Can you show us by changing any key manipulation here? No, definitely not. It's illegal, first of all. And I mean, that's something that we don't promote, right? Because that's what I'm trying to tell you. I can find these misconfigured devices, but the moment I start messing around with them, that's illegal. So that's something that I cannot show you. But I mean, with the amount of data that has been leaked out, you can probably try to do it yourself. Not that I advise you to do that, because again, there's a very fine line between hacking and fine line between security, right? And even if you're trying to learn these kind of things, that's not a defense in a court of law. So if you're caught doing this, I was just trying to learn or I was just trying to practice my skills, that's not a defense. You'll probably be jailed for it. For hacking, if it is proved that you've tried to hack, the jail sentence is around 3 years. All right. So that's Google hacking and that's Shodan. I think there was another tool, Census.io, that you can utilize. So this is again find and analyze every reachable server and device on the internet. Right. What trusted certificates include my domain name? What services and devices does my network expose? So you can give it an IP address. Understand your internet-facing attack surface. So this is what we are utilizing this for. Actually, I mean, you're covering this in clearing tracks. No, we are not talking about clearing tracks. You're talking about information gathering. We're talking about footprinting. We are not talking about clearing tracks. Clearing tracks is a completely different aspect, which we look at the end of the hack. Right? Please understand that fact. Clearing tracks is completely different. We are in the information gathering phase. We are gathering data. But isn't the security of the site itself questionable? How do we identify a site to collect information that won't try extracting something from me? When I'm searching Flipkart and Shodan, it is giving some which I'm not sure. Can you do that once? See, we are not going to look for specific sites here. I'm sorry to say that, because see, Flipkart is a website. You use Google to search for it. Flipkart devices, like a router that Flipkart owns, for that you use Shodan. Okay, understand that differentiation. If it's a website that I'm trying to gather information from, I'll be using search engines like Google, Bing, Yahoo. If it is devices, we look for, we use Shodan and Census, right? Adrian, what, see, you're looking at things wrong. We are talking about information gathering about particular sites. So the queries that I'm firing generally right now, and we're just using the internet to just find those kind of things, that can be specified to a particular website as well, like the site operator that I just showed you here, right? So something like, so if it's my website that I publish on the internet, I'll try to see if it is vulnerable for Google hacking. I'll try to use Shodan to see if the web server or the device that is connecting that particular server to the internet is that vulnerable or not. So here we are trying to attack others and see what information they can give me. That's from a hacker's perspective. From a security person's perspective, I can run the same test on my devices, on my websites, to see whether they are vulnerable or not. Right? Getting me? Perfect. Sagar, how do we search for that? For Flipkart on Google, just the way that we've been doing, right? Go to Google, try to create a query, see if this is a site operator, uh, Flipkart.com, and see whether it works or not. But you don't want to do that because right now your IP address is completely visible to the other person. So if you're going to fire this query at Flipkart.com, I'm sure that they've got a very good security mechanism at their place, especially since they are valued at $20 billion right now. So the first thing that will happen is it will set off a ping at their particular uh, server saying that we are getting these kind of queries, right? Yeah, but that's not what we are studying right now, right? VPN is something that we'll look at little later. So even with these kind of things, I want you to be very careful because these are not legal queries. So just don't misuse this kind of information. It's going to hurt you in the long run. Okay, so we were on census.io, right? And here as well, we can just take out particular sites. Now here you can see I want IP version 4 hosts, or I'm looking for websites, or I'm looking for certificates, right? If I go for website, which is simplylearn.com, it is then going to identify that website and give me information. So on simplylearn.com, the website is running these protocols 25 for, so there's a email service going on, HTTPS and HTTPS World Wide Web. It also runs HTTP as well, right? And gives me information about that particular website, right? Right, this is the report that I can utilize. I want to look for IP version 4 hosts. It will tell me about. Now the thing is that Simplilearn, if you see this here, you'll see is on Amazon AWS, and they're using CloudFront. So it's serverless website hosting that they're doing, right? What is Sensi used for? Like I just showed you, we can find devices, websites, as well as digital certificates. So it depends on what you want to use it for, right? Now, see, we are looking at three different tools here. It's not necessary that I use all three. It depends on me what I want to use for the purpose that I want to use it. So if I Google hacking data with the GHDB, it's somewhat primary in nature when I want to look at websites whether they are vulnerable or not. Uh, if I want to look at devices, I come to Shodan. If I want to look at multiple results, I come to Census. So it depends on how I want to do this. And show the results of certificates. Okay. There it is. It gives me the canonical name and the certificate. So if I go into it, this is what the certificate is all about. The certificate I can view just by going to the website as well. But what this does is it allows me to look at a lot of information, right? This is what the basic certificate would be. Now you can verify this with the SHA, see this DNS name, then you probably have a SHA key or something like that over here, right? Signature algorithm and the serial version, and you can just compare with that with the report that you're getting over here to see if it matches. It generally should match. And you go to the certification path, okay, and okay, see, when they applied, when Simplilearn wants a digital certificate, Now, we're not going to go here right now. You know what? I'll park that question. We have a cryptography thingy over here. We're going to look at public key infrastructure then, and we'll have a discussion at that point in time, right? So we'll go into the depth of how root certificates and all those things work in the cryptography part of it. All right. Coming back, we're still in the footprinting and information gathering phase. Concentrate on what we are doing right now. I know you got a lot of questions but they need to be structured based on the topic. Otherwise, we can have a very huge discussion about the entire hacking methodology and still not reach anywhere, right? What you want to do right now is what topic are we at and how do I utilize that particular topic for a particular hack, right? We should not be leading to offshoot questions where, oh, okay, since we are here on a website, what does this do and what does that do, okay? So coming back, footprinting and information gathering, that's what we are at. We want to gather information. We have used search engines like Google. Root CA have public key and subroot CA have public and private key. Can root CA public key interact with see, public key and private, for that you need to first understand encryption. What is a symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption? So, like I said, some of the basics that you have are not properly in place. So, once we look at the PKI entirely with the view of what encryption is all about, right? That's when we'll discuss this. Okay. But till then, why don't you look at symmetric and asymmetric encryption, which will help you understand what a private key is and what a public key and a private key is, the combination of those, right? Everyone got these materials and code activation from Aspen iLabs. These questions we can, guys, again, we digress. We keep on changing the topics. Concentrate on what we are doing right now. Okay. Otherwise, I mean, you're just going to be, you won't be clear about what's going on. Okay, coming back, Keenan, I didn't get your question. What encrypt was that? As in? Could you rephrase that question, please? Coming back, see, the thing is you want to learn how to craft those queries and what kind of queries, the encryption that you were talking about just now. I was talking about symmetric and asymmetric encryption. Those are the types of encryption that are available in the market right now. And based on that, you're going to use it for a particular scenario, right? But again, like I said, we are not going to touch that topic right now. We'll look at it a little later, right? Moving on, you can use the same engines for doing VoIP and VPN, which will basically be looking at when we go to IoT hacking. All right. Now, what we want to do is we want to, yes, and we are reaching there. So we're going to cover an entire topic in which whois.net and a lot of tools will be utilized. So as we go ahead, there will be a lot of tools, and in fact, you know what? Start writing down all the tools that we're utilizing. Okay. Do it this way. Create a chart, maybe in an Excel file or a Word file, where you write the name of the tool and the purpose of the tool. So what are you going to utilize this for? How do hackers hide their identity while printing? You spoof your IP addresses and MAC addresses, right? But again, that is something that we'll be doing at later on in the system hacking phase. Information gathering by itself, apart from the tools that we have utilized right now, is not illegal because that information is already available in the public field. So what I'm doing right now, what we did on Shodan and all that, a little bit illegal because we are actually getting access to databases. But as we go ahead, what we are going to do right now is not going to be illegal at all. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to identify a particular site and we're going to start footprinting on that. Right till now, it was an untargeted attack because we're just looking at anything on the internet. Now, there are two sites that we'll use. This is a secure site because it's on AWS using CloudFront. So serverless computing, right? So minimal